Hello, my name is Joshua Croyle, and today we're going to talk about a community that is very near and dear to my heart, and it has to do with polyhedral dice. Tabletop role-playing games have seen a recent upsurge in popularity thanks to the show Stranger Things and the Twitch stream Critical Role. It has become a lot more present in the public eye. For the duration of this video, I'm going to shorten this lengthy title to TTRPG. Before we can understand the community that surrounds tabletop role-playing games, first I need to erase this. And then after that, we need to figure out what are tabletop role-playing games. For a good definition of what tabletop role-playing games are, let's turn to TV writer Dan Harmon to see what his opinion is.
For the few people who are just deciding to join us for season 3, we're playing a fantasy role-playing game, tabletop style. Spencer is the god of our world. We have character sheets with stats and crap on it, and we tell him what we're trying to do. He rolls dice and tells us whether what we wanted to do succeeds or fails.
Thanks, Dan Harmon. Just like Dan said, one person acts as the game master, who is a sort of author of the story, a director, if you will. They dictate to the players what their characters experience and see around them, and then the rest of the players dictate what their character does in this collaborative narrative. They then use dice to simulate randomness and rules and mechanics to simulate what their characters are capable of doing. This repeats cyclically until everybody gets bored and goes home. In execution, it's kind of like Pokemon. Except instead of simulating Technicolor epilepsy monsters fighting to the death, it simulates an excerpt from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, or Robin Hood, Men in Tights.
Wait a minute, I'm not supposed to lose. Let me see the script.
The TTRPG community is based around 4 pillars, which can be remembered with this very easy to remember acronym. F, C, F, I. Fee. The first one is fun. First and foremost, playing these games is about being entertained. In fact, many rulebooks include what is referred to as the zeroth rule, the oath rule, the rule 0, which is that at any time the game master can change any of the rules. Generally, a good game master will use this to increase the amount of fun that's being had. Much in the same way that sometimes movies will ignore the laws of physics. We all know how many bullets are in a 6-shooter. Just because there's not 6 bullets in that guy's gun doesn't mean him shooting all those guys isn't fun. The C, of course, stands for camaraderie. Camaraderie means friends. There's another unspoken rule in TTRPG that we talk about all the time, and that is never split the party. Because facing fights alone is dangerous, and there's strength in numbers. And friendship. Harry Potter, there's an Order of the Phoenix. Lord of the Rings, there's the Fellowship of the Ring. Star Wars, you've got all the guys. You know the ones I'm talking about. The thing that distinguishes TTRPG from board games, for example, is that in general, TTRPG is not competitive. We're all just trying to make a narrative together. The next pillar is one that I think you, my fellow Americans, can get behind, and that's freedom. Player autonomy, or their freedom to choose whichever outcomes they desire, is something that the community holds very important. As long as it doesn't stomp on any of the other rules, your characters should have the ability to choose whatever they want. Because one of the things that makes TTRPG so different from other mediums that are interactive is that since you have another person dictating the end results, you can do whatever you want. The fourth and final pillar actually looks like a pillar because it starts with the letter I, and it's inclusivity. And that's too long to write on my board. Inclusivity is important because the entire point of TTRPG is adopting new personas and being somebody that you're not. And if everyone gets to be someone they're not, then why wouldn't we let certain people in? This is actually the big one that we're gonna talk about today. The biggest issue facing the TTRPG community today is that of discrimination. I'm gonna focus on sexism. This guy right here, inclusivity. That's where the problem is. Rachel Just, a UM alum, actually wrote her thesis on gendered resistance within the tabletop and live-action roleplay community. Over the course of her study, she ended up playing around 15 hours of Dungeons & Dragons, a very popular tabletop role-playing game. Throughout her 15 hours spent at the gaming table, the male players kept explaining rules to her, even though she was very clear that she had been playing for almost 5 years. Kate Bullock, an industry insider and the current president of the Indie Game Developer Network, runs a blog called Bluestockings Organic Gaming. On her blog, she has an in-depth 3-part article on all the ways that the TTRPG community has assaulted and abused her. One particular instance was that of a TTRPG convention that Kate Bullock was involved in running. 1 year after she tried to bring a sexual assault case to light that had occurred at the convention, she was removed from the team. When the convention didn't meet the next year, people online blamed her for killing the convention. Teri Litorco talks about her experience of sexual assault in her article entitled 3 Actionable Ways to Make Gaming Culture Safer. She worked at a gaming shop one summer where she was aggressively stalked by a customer. He even went as far as bringing a video camera to the store to record her teaching kids how to play Warhammer. Sexism isn't just present in all the big ways like the sexual assaults and harassments and stalking. It's also present in just the way that we play these games together. Girls have a different experience when they're at the gaming table, even when people are doing their best to include them. Rachel Just found in her study that even when girls are allowed to play these games, they're still forced into gender roles. She found that overwhelmingly girls are made to feel uncomfortable if they're trying to play a character that's not innately feminine. One of the biggest draws of a fantasy role-playing game is that you don't have to be the person you are in day-to-day life. If we're going to find ways to get rid of this gendered resistance, first we have to look way back to the founding of this hobby and this community. We need to figure out what is it that causes this gendered resistance to remain present in our games. Jessica Price, a former project leader at Paizo, the company that makes Pathfinder, is very outspoken about this issue on Twitter. The founding myth of the TTRPG community is that of the persecuted geek who found friends and refuge in tabletop gaming. That myth does a lot of things. Some of them are positive. It places an onus on tabletop gamers to be accepting of others. It views gaming as a haven for the excluded, the socially awkward, the bullied, the guys who got picked on by jocks and rejected by women. And there's the crux. It's a myth based on a shared experience of persecution that acknowledges only the experience of white men. The problem is that many gamers see women and jocks as oppressors because of the classic issues of high school. Jessica Price points out that a lot of the source material that tabletop role-playing games are lifted from has very sexist roots and backgrounds. Pointed out by Rachel Just in her thesis is the fact that a lot of the older games gave women different stats. They were generally seen as weaker. There's also the factor that sexism is just an issue in general. Litorco suggests that the burden of repairing this broken community lies in the hands of its members. Women make up around 50% of the population. So if you have 8 guys around your gaming table and 1 girl, and it's that one guy's girlfriend and she's just on her phone all the time, then maybe you're not being as inclusive as you think you are. Things as simple as being mindful of your own biases and the way that you treat other people is already a step in the right direction. Sexism in gaming is not new. It's an issue that's been around for a very long time, and the only reason that it's still here is because not enough people are taking action. Members of this community need to take a long, hard look at themselves and their gaming groups. Perhaps the best way to solve the issue of sexism at our game tables is to solve the issues of sexism in our own lives. All in all, while a strong community, the TTRPG community is in a difficult state of growth. It is a communal coming of age with its own growing pains and awkward stages. In order for the community to change, the people within it must change. This change happens slowly, but the TTRPG community is already headed in the right direction. So long as the members are willing to see the issues that still prevail among our ranks and continue to work towards slaying the dragon of sexism, our community will only grow stronger.